Hello friends of Collegium Voitilianum, my name is Carolina Besenic. I'm a researcher at the Collegium and I've returned today with my friend Father Grzegorz Hall. And we are continuing our discussion on love and responsibility. We got a lot of positive feedback last week regarding our discussions, so we decided, well, there's a lot more to talk about, so let's get back to it. Father, today I wrote down a few ideas, and I think that I'd like to keep our discussion today centered around ethics. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Are you ready, guys? Because ethics is my thing. We're going to get into this today. Very often when we think of Karol Wojtyła, we think he's a priest, he was the Pope, he is a saint, and we think of theology of the body. But today I also want us to think of it from a perspective of ethics. Wojtyła was an ethicist, and Love and Responsibility proposed an incredible ethical norm for us as modern Christians, modern people, for treating people. And that's what we're going to talk about. So, Father, how can we look at Love and Responsibility as a manual of how to treat people, as an ethical manual?
Yeah, it is. Actually, this book introduces us, ushers us into personalist ethics, and it offers a set of preliminary issues necessary for proper understanding of what personalist ethics is all about. I think that a very basic issue which intrigued Karol Wojtyła was this distinction between things and persons, objects and persons. What divides these two realms of the reality, which today is not very clear for many people, yeah? And he lays, I would say, a foundation for personalist ethics, starting from showing that the human person is completely different from the world of things, possesses something which distinguishes him from inanimate objects. Basically, Wojtyła shows that this is something associated with the human interiority, with inner life, understood broadly. And that's exactly the moment which must be taken into account when we want to distinguish things and persons from things.
We talk about this with this distinction, and I think this is a really great moment to, again, as we did a little bit the last time, place Love and Responsibility into context. Love and Responsibility was written during the Soviet period in Poland, and at this point in time, people were, you could say they were viewed at by the Soviet authorities as like cogs in the wheel, pieces in a bigger picture. We're all working towards a greater end, which was towards the fulfillment of communism in Poland, the realization of this. So Wojtyła, in a way, was kind of revolutionary at the time with reminding people, you're not a piece in a greater plan, you're a person. You have inherent dignity, and you cannot be treated as just a piece. And so that, I think, is going to lead us to philosophical presuppositions that we need to have to understand this book. What can you pinpoint?
Karol Wojtyła starts with a German philosopher, Immanuel Kant, who offered a second imperative, telling us that the human person is always an end in itself and should never be treated as a means only. And this remark was something which directed Wojtyła's thought toward thinking about persons as values in themselves, values of all other values, and values which never can be, in a sense, reduced to the level of things, useful tools. This was a very important starting point for Wojtyła, also in distinguishing them from the world of things, objects, gadgets.
So if we look at this and then we think about people, we've already talked about this idea that people are persons with dignity. They're not just pieces in a master plan. But then looking on a smaller level between individuals, how can we understand this in a relationship? And I don't want to initially just like talk about marriage, but let's think in a more general perspective, like between friends. How can we understand the idea of reducing someone in a friendship to just a tool, to just a means?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Because in everyday relationships, it's not that easy to perceive that, to catch that important feature. But I think that there is a tendency to treat other people, even close people, as useful tools for my ends. Someone who realizes what I want, who is, I would say, only in my service. Yeah. And Wojtyła's remarks showing that persons are always ends in themselves, just makes us realize that I always should treat even close people as individuals who deserve respect, who should be thanked for the help, who deserve more attention because they are also persons possessing their own interiority in their life. This kind of sensitivity towards others. So while dealing with others, I'm not also someone who receives the help, the service, but I'm also someone who is attentive at their own interiority, at their own value, at their own ends, at their own needs. Just combining these two attitudes would amount to just respecting someone as an end in him herself.
If we're going to respect a person as an end, then I guess the important thing to do at this point, as we build our discussion, is can you define for me two ideas? What is a person? And then from this, what is usage? Wojtyła gives very succinct definitions for both of these ideas in his text, and I think it's important for our discussion.
Yeah. Actually, Karol Wojtyła moves within the Boethian tradition. So he assumes that the person is a substance, but also someone more. The concept of substance is useful, but it's not sufficient to describe who the person is. That's why he moves more toward the person's interiority, towards what constitutes the inner life of the person, and only through the prism of her interiority is really striking that this entity is someone more, someone who cannot be reduced to something less, to the world of things. So in a sense, without taking into account the person's interiority, we cannot properly define the person. I think that it was very important for Wojtyła to realize that, okay, by doing that, he was not alone. Actually, he just used extensively the philosophy of St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, other philosophers, but he was also open for more contemporary openings in philosophy, for achievements of philosophers of dialogue, personalists, existentialists. So in a sense, Karol Wojtyła was someone who, having a very strong experience of the person, having very strong, I would say, a conviction that the person is someone important, someone valuable, he was looking for various tools in philosophy to bring out the richness of the person. In this sense, his philosophy is still open, it's a kind of open system. I think to a great extent he was successful in doing that. But of course, there is still a lot to do in this respect, because the person still constitutes kind of mystery. So we cannot say that Karol Wojtyła just explored the human person completely, entirely. It's not true. But he did a lot in this respect.
And so then, with regards to the person, what does usage mean? How does Wojtyła propose this concept, and how does he apply it with regards to the person? Because that's a big part of understanding his normative declaration here of not using a person.
I think that the first remark which must be made is that he was very against using the person as an object. So the usage in association with the person is something quite suspicious. We should be very careful not to just use the person. And of course, the usage has many meanings, many aspects, including those subtle ones. So we talk not only about sexual usage, but you can also use a person emotionally, overuse it, just for your own satisfaction.
Let's think about that for a second. For example, we're at school, in university. I just finished my university career, but Father is in university. He has quite a few students. It could be the idea of students taking a class of Father Holub's, preparing for an exam, and only talking to each other for the purpose of getting notes. I think we've all been there as the people who had the good notes in class. And people only talked to you so they could use those notes, borrow the notes. And it's a moment when it happens repeatedly that the discussion only moves to my direction because, hey, by the way, could I use your notes for the exam? Okay. And that's where it ends. In this point, I become a tool for another person to pass the exam. In a relationship, it could be also, for example, in a marriage, it could be the idea of promoting discussion, but only for the purpose of relieving my feelings, but never asking the other person how they're doing for the day. Something as simple as this can be a moment of emotional usage where my partner is the person who is making me feel better, but at the same time, I never extend the courtesy to them of asking, well, how are you doing? What do you think about this? And in marriage, in friendship, Wojtyła sees this all as the idea of relations. Yes, there's different kinds of relations, but for him, it's just important, regardless of the relation, there cannot be an element of usage in there because it involves people.
Yeah, it can happen that you associate only with your colleagues, your friends who make you feel good emotionally, and avoid others who, I would say, don't live up to that. Well, it can be an example of usage. As you said, you don't ask others how they feel, because you are not interested in that. You are only concentrated on your emotional states, on your emotional feelings, and you are not interested in others. Well, that's also one of the examples of the attitude where the usage is, I would say, the main criterion.
And so then it comes to the idea of why do we associate with people? What do we get from it? Within relationships, there's this emotion that draws people together. We can call it love. And for Wojtyła, it's very important when we build relationships that we have degrees of affection or degrees of love, this expression of emotion. He actually gives a few different degrees of attraction at this point. Could you elaborate on this for us?
Well, basically, no, Wojtyła's understanding of love is very complex. So he was fully aware that love has many dimensions, and we can deal with various kinds of love, But he, as a philosopher, was interested in love itself. What constitutes the love itself? He was very far from identifying love with a set of feelings, with a set of emotions. Although emotions are important in love, and in a sense they color love, But Wojtyła was convinced that in the core, at the end of the day, the love is not about emotions. It's about your decisions, about your will, your desire for the good of others. I like your good. I'm ready to support you because you constitute a basic good, a basic value. So in this decision, in this attitude, the love is fully displayed toward everyone. So it can happen that you have no emotional relations with someone at all, but at the same time you love the person. And for Wojtyła, it was perfectly okay.
And I think this is what we can then look at and we can say it's friendship. Because friendship, again, there's different degrees of relationships, there's different degrees of friendships, but something that really profoundly impacted me when I read Love and Responsibility is the understanding of friendship. That in a relationship, once we remove usage and we begin growing together and we begin seeking the good for each other, we have love. And this is the love that the other person, that even if we will never get married, it's a love that you have in your interactions, that you hope for the best for them, that you work for the best for them. And then it so beautifully goes into that on top of this, we can have a romantic love. And with this, you wish the best for the other person, but then together you pursue the good. Yes, you go to the good together. But then we always have this in the background that Wojtyła continues to warn about the danger of usage. Do you think it's a legitimate concern that he has, Father Grzegorz, that in a relationship where you love someone so much you want to go to a church and say vows, you can still risk usage?
Well, I think that's this scenario is very realistic, and I think that the tendency to use others as means is even growing more and more. But of course, everything is decided in the person's interiority. So sometimes just observing someone from outside, we cannot say for sure that that person is driven by this attitude of using others for his her own advantage or satisfaction. That's why it's much more an appeal to this particular person, to his thinking, to his deciding not to do that, to be careful. So in a sense, everyone should be cautious and just be careful not to use others in this superficial, inadequate way, because being the person means to deserve more, to deserve greater respect and love. So in a sense, Wojtyła's investigations, Wojtyła's reflections on this topic, in a sense, are very personal, in the sense that they are directed to someone's thinking, to someone's deciding. So it's not a kind of, I would say, external policy to guard someone, no, because as I said, we cannot decide, we cannot say from outside what's someone's attitude,
But this is something within us, that we look at each other in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day regard to another person, and we're continuously thinking about respect, about dignity, versus just a very one-sided of what I need. How can we get to there faster? And this brings up an important point, because we've talked about people, we've talked about usage, we've talked about dignity. At the top of that, with relationships, I'd like to bring this to kind of a point and ask you, what is the point of a relationship with Wojtyła? What is the point of marriage? What is the point of two people coming together? Like, what does he see as this good?
Well, that's a very fundamental question, yeah. I think that even in the ancient philosophy, there was a conviction that a human being is a social creature. Yeah? So we are, in a sense, destined to live in a society, in a community, in a society, not as deserted islands. Yeah? And so we need others to realize fully who we are, to fulfill ourselves. And marriage, of course, is a perfect example of such a community, to fully actualize the potential of both sides in a mutual love, but with the intention to act for the sake of the other person. So not being so much concentrated on my happiness, my satisfaction, but acting for the good of the others. I'm realizing myself. I'm, in a sense, making me who I'm intended to be. But this is surprisingly done when I'm not concentrated on me, but on the good of the other.
But
So,
even this good, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is so interesting, because even this good, then, that you're concentrating for the other person, it's not just the temporal now, but it's for their good as a person, for their purpose. In a way, we could say it's teleological.
yeah, it is. Yeah, because especially in the philosophy and theology of Karol Wojtyła, we deal not only, I would say, within the horizon of this world, but Wojtyła, as a believing Christian, was fully aware that the good of the person goes beyond this world. Yeah, that we have some desires, some longings which lead us beyond this world. So acting for the good of the person is taking seriously into account, that longings which lead us into eternity, just those longings associated with God, our desire to be in a communion with God, definitely.
So I encourage you, after watching this movie, based on what we've discussed today, to consider your own relationships and to think about your friendships, your family relationships, your parents, your brothers and sisters, your spouse or your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and think, within this context of this relationship, how we are working together for each other's common good, which also goes to impact the good of the community. We'll come back to this on another topic, because that's another very interesting discussion. And then also, as we're working for each other's good, how this good works in this life, how this good is applied in this life, and then how it applies to the next life. As we work together, it's a journey of a lifetime. I think this is a big thing that struck me with Wojtyła's discussion on marriage. It's the journey of a lifetime, it's the adventure of a lifetime, but it's something that we pursue now as we pursue eternity.
Yes.
With always in the background. And it's a book that draws your mind to the things that are now, the things that are to come, and the things that we hope for together. So I encourage you to let us know what you think about this and what you would like to see in our channel to come. If you have any other questions about love and responsibility, please send us a message or comment on the video, because we really enjoy this topic. Father Grzegorz and I have a passion for this book, and we'd like to explore it further with you guys. Make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel, like and subscribe our social media. We have right now LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so you can always find us somewhere on the web doing something with Collegium Wojtylianum, and that way you won't miss any of the discussions that are coming or any of the discussions that we're currently having. Father Grzegorz, thank you so much for joining me today. See you guys next time.